Previously, our sail from Tavanapupū to Tikopia had some longer overnight legs. A stop at Mosquito Anchorage in Malolo Island had us climbing up a huge strangler fig tree, emerging at the top high up. But mostly, it was for the coral diving. I watched a striped wetsuit scare away sharks. Then to Ndendo Island and Lada, to clear customs for the Solomons. Then sailing in strong headwinds showed that some sails needed repair and strengthening. At Vanikoro, we found the memorial to La Perouse and dived on the wreck of L'Astrolabe, where I recovered a piece of copper sheathing. Then it was Tikopia. We entertained the school with slides and movies, the young lads carting our projector gear, and were invited to dine with Te Ariki Tafua. Finally, we said goodbye to Tikopia and the main chief, Te Ariki Tafua. A long 9-day beat to windward from Tikopia to Fiji. The wind dropped away near Fiji, so we motored in, with the light on Beqa Island appearing where my navigation said it should be. After passing Beqa at 11:30 p.m, it was 80 kilometers of calm Nandi waters and coral to Lautoka to clear customs for entry into Fiji. Lautoka, second largest city of Viti Levu after Suva, and the western capital. Into the harbour to clear customs. Then around to anchor with other cruising yachts. To our surprise, the cruise liner Fairstar came into port. We were back in tourist land. A bula, welcoming, performance for the cruise passengers. The Lautoka Bula Festival was on, and we were there for the grand parade. Miss Bula, and done. Not a lot of joy showing in the ethnic Indian population. Back in the days when Qantas flew to Fiji and refueled on the long flights to the USA. After our introduction to Fiji, some parents arrived. We had a permit to visit the Yasawa Islands, heading for Wea, an island we passed on our way in. Rolly and Robin were graciously sleeping on deck under the awning. Of course, now every anchorage is to shoot the southeast trade winds. We met some local school children. 2 of their teachers came aboard for some refreshments. A small inter-island ferry. From Wea to Somosomo on Navidi Island, the first of the Yasawa group. Into a nice, protected anchorage. But as we found, also a stop for the 3-day tourist cruise boats. the dry side of Fiji, so copra can be safely dried in the sun. The locals put on a special show and meal ashore for the cruise boat tourists. We explored the Yasawas, moving up as far as Sawa-i-Lau Island, where we dived into the caves. The local Yasawans were heavily into the tourist trade. Preparing the kava for the tourists. Back in 1977, the Sawa-i-Lau caves were only accessible by diving through an underwater tunnel. Once through the tunnel, the cave ceiling is open to the sky through a gap, but inaccessible this way due to the steep walls and overhang. The daredevil Rolly found a way to scale partway up the wall. Then it was time to sail down to Nandi and the airport to meet with more family flying in, and to say goodbye to Rolly and Robin. We anchored in front of the Nandi Sheraton, at that time the only development on the coast, to wait for family to arrive. Of course, we explored the resort while waiting. The mandatory kava bowl for later in the evening. From the Sheraton across to Malolo Lailai, Little Malolo. Family electing to go by sailing ferry, rather than risk seasickness on our small boat. Into Malolo, following the marked ferry track. We said goodbye to parents. And stayed at Malolo Lailai for another day or so. Then continued on to explore more of Fiji. We sail around to Suva, stopping at various resorts, and meeting up with family, travelling by hire car. Leaving the calm Nandi waters, we sail to the Fijian resort. Into Kuvu Harbour. We anchor at what was then called the Fijian. It was a tough life, but somebody had to live it. As we had a car, we explored the local countryside and people. Then back to the Fijian for lunches, dinners, and a show. The Fijian to Korolivu. To anchor at Korolivu Beach Hotel. Another fun time place for kids. Marine polyclad flatworm. Hermit crab in a shell. From Korolivu to what became the marina for the Pacific Harbour development. Into the port for an overnight stop. Somewhat more developed today than the simple river anchorage of 50 years ago. Then on to Suva Harbour. And into anchor at the Royal Suva Yacht Club. We heard that most cruising yachts preferred the environment at the Tradewinds Hotel, so we moved around. In 1977, yachts were welcome to tie up alongside the Tradewinds. From an old postcard, yachts tied up on the left. Another postcard from the 70s. And a few recent photos. Now called Novotel Suva Lami Bay. We travel by car back to Pacific Harbour to see the Firewalkers of Fiji. Or more correctly, of Beqa Island, just to the south of Pacific Harbour. To me, nowhere near as impressive as the Firewalkers of Rabaul. Stoking up the crowd and themselves on some kava. Then it was time to return to Nandi, Sue and family by car around Fiji. And me, single-handed by sea, overnighting again at the Fijian. Time for a farewell dinner before family fly out from Nandi Airport, back to Australia. It was time for us to return to Lautoka to clear customs. But first we went to see a dance concert put on by the local Fijian Indian community. Having cleared customs in Lautoka, we moved down to Malolo Lailai to relax for a couple of days to prepare for our long hop to New Caledonia and Noumea. Next, we return to Australia with stops in Vanuatu and New Caledonia, and visit the Chesterfield Reefs in the middle of the Coral Sea. New Caledonia with its iron and nickel-rich mountains was quite a change, as was the wealth shown in the marina in Noumea, a town of only 50,000. Culinary delights abounded, and a street fair happened, with yet more tempting food. Officers from a visiting Australian Navy ship asked us to a party aboard, and said, just come around and tie alongside. Then it was time to head west to Australia, stopping at the Chesterfield Reefs, where many bird species were nesting. Then the last leg to Australia, visiting an old haunt at Middle Percy, before checking in at Mackay.